performance tasks in my classroom. All right, so what I like about performance tasks is that the students are using critical thinking, they're analyzing, problem solving, and then as an English teacher, their written communication skills are really important to me. So in a performance task, the students are given a hypothetical yet realistic situation, and then along with that, they also have a document library that includes a range of different primary and secondary sources that they use to help them answer the open-ended questions that they're given along with the scenario. Now for me, as an English teacher, I try to kind of steer away from multiple choice tests, things like that, because I just feel like that there's too much standardized testing. For Virginia, my SOLs are more skill-based than content-based, so most of the performance tasks are writing-based assessments or have some sort of writing component to them. All right, so go ahead and, if it's working for you, go ahead and just answer the question up here. What types of summative assessments do you usually give to your students? Is that working?
It's not that we're not participating.
No, I know. That's fine. It's slow. We'll give it a minute. Here are still waiting for it to work, but so it's like we've got some short answer, essays, video projects, a wide variety, that's great. Ideas created by students, that sounds really, really good. Speaking assessment, for Spanish, excellent. Interactive, that's great. Research projects, benchmarks, yes, we'll probably all have to deal with benchmarks at some point. Choice of presentations, essays, good, excellent. Performance task, problem-based projects. Awesome. Very good. All right. So we're going to start today with talking about The Outsiders. How many of you have read The Outsiders at some point in your life? Okay. I figured. How many of you have read it probably in the past year or so? Okay, so probably some English teachers in here as well. All right, so for the Outsiders performance test that I'm going to share with you, I really feel like we need to set the scene. So in the next slide, I have a little video excerpt from the fountain scene, and this is where Johnny winds up killing the Soj Bob. So I'm going to play that for us. It's like less than 3 minutes, just to kind of get our heads into the scenario that the students are going to be dealing with. And that particular scene plays a big part in this particular performance task. Now it's going to come up on your screen, but I'll just play it up here because if we're all trying to play it at the same time on our device, it would probably get a little crazy.
This is our
I apologize for my speaker too. so from this scene, what do you think are some of the major themes or ideas that can be explored a little bit more, just based on this theme, or if you're very familiar with the book in general? What are some of the major themes or big ideas that we could explore a little bit?
The differences between classes.
Right, absolutely, definitely. Status, socioeconomic class, good. Fear, definitely.
Peer pressure.
Right, absolutely. Peer pressure, revenge, loyalty, violence, excellent. Feuds, right, status fitting in. Survival, tolerance versus intolerance, stereotypes, definitely. Bullying, good. That's a good one. Man against man, in regards to conflict. Diversity, nice. Good, loss of innocence, excellent. Good, right versus wrong, blame, things like that. All of these, good. All right, so for my performance task, for this particular one, I focus on those big ideas. I have other performance tests that I'll show you that focus on more specific content or specific information, but this one I give them after we're done reading the novel. We've already discussed all, the plot elements. We discussed characterization, conflict, other literary elements. So that stuff is done with, and now with this performance task, we're really focusing on those big ideas. Here we go. All right. Okay, so I start out with a scenario. So it's like I'm giving the students a role within the whole scene, and I tell them that we are going to pretend that what happened to PonyBoy and Bob and Johnny, it's all real. So we're pretending it's all real, it really happened, we live in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and we are kind of part of that community, and we're going to be participating indirectly in regards to that case. So I don't let them mention the book or something that happened in the book. We talk about it as if it's real or write about it. All right, so as you can see, I tell them that they are high school students working part-time at the Tulsa Police Station, and they've been assigned to Detective Jameson to help with a case involving the murder of Bob Sheldon. They're going to answer 3 sets of questions below, which I'll show you in a second, and they're going to use the document library to help them answer those questions. So we're not using the book. We're not taking quotes from the book. We're not going back to the book. In fact, I won't even let them have a copy of the novel when we're doing this. They have to just use the documents I've given them from the document library. All right. Oh, another thing with this particular one, I tell them that there is no right or wrong answer, which is sometimes very hard for them to wrap their minds around because they all want to know, they want to give me the right answer so they can get that good grade. But I tell them that their answers are all right. There's nothing wrong with any of them. But what I'm looking for is how well they can support their answers with the evidence from this document library. It's all about backing up your answers, supporting them, showing evidence from the stuff I've given them. And that's what ultimately their grade is based on. All right, so these are the questions that they have to answer. All right, question set 1, who instigated the fight between Bob and PonyBoy? Was this an isolated incident or ongoing feud? Question set 2, who's responsible for Bob's death? Was Bob in the wrong place at the wrong time? Is Cherry or PonyBoy somehow to blame? Was Johnny solely trying to save PonyBoy, or were other factors involved? And finally, what does it mean to fight back in self-defense? Can it be against the law? And does this apply to anyone involved in the case? So again, I get all different answers. There's all different opinions about these things, but how well I grade their writing is how well they back up their answers and back up their opinions in their writing. All right, so this is the document library that I give them. There's 8 different documents in there. Some I created myself and some that I found and am using. The first one is a chart, and the title of the chart, which is showing it, says alcohol-related incidents reported by police. So they have this they can use to help support their answers. Number 2 and 3 is Cherry Valance's court transcript from when she testified. Number 4 is an article on the history of bullying. 5 is the actual legal definition of self-defense. 6 is Bob Sheldon's obituary from the newspaper. A photo of Johnny Cage's switchblade. Another photo of a previous incident when the Socias were attacking PonyBoy. So not that night at the fountain. This was another day. And finally, another article on adolescent drinking. So they have these 8 sources that they must use to support their answers. So how well they can use these documents to back up what they're saying and back up their opinions is really what I use to base their grade on. All right, now, I also throw in some distractors. And distractors are documents that are somewhat related to this performance task, but really don't help them support any of their answers to any of those particular questions. So not only are they having to analyze these documents to see how well they can use them to support their answers, they're also trying to analyze which ones truly are appropriate to what they're trying to say. All right, so just taking a little poll. I think if you click on here, you can see the questions again if you'd like to. But out of these documents here, which do you think could be considered a distractor? They're really, that particular document really isn't going to help support any of their answers to any of those questions. What do you think?
The drinking document?
Okay, that could do it, although Bob and his friends had been drinking. So I have seen them use that one a little bit sometimes to back up the fact that adolescent drinking is a problem. It can cause the students to be violent. Right. I think either the knife photograph. We already know he was stabbed. Although I do have sometimes some kids get kind of technical with they know something about knives, like the size of the knife and the type it was and that kind of thing. And so and I'll take any answer. It's just how well they can, like I said, back up their answers. Any other thoughts on any of these?
The obituary.
Right, the obituary. A lot of them use that one, but I really don't feel like that. An obituary is written by someone on the newspaper staff. With the information that they're giving. So it's we know he's died. We know why. We don't need to know when funerals or whatever. So that one I think definitely is a distractor. But I still sometimes they don't realize that, and they'll still use that sometimes when they're giving their answers. They'll try to use that particular one as evidence. Good. All right. Okay. All right. All right. So any questions on the outsiders one? I'm going to kind of move on and show you another example that I do. All right. So like I said, the outsiders one, I focus a lot on those big ideas, those major themes. But sometimes I create performance tasks when I have very specific information that I want my students to know. Sometimes I just get so excited and I want to tell them all this great information, and I'm so excited about what I want them to learn. So for example, we do a little mini unit on Julius Caesar, and we do it in conjunction with our history teachers who are studying about Rome and Caesar in history class. So this is some specific information that I want them to know in regards to the funeral scene, which they look at and discuss in history, and we also look at it in English class. And I get so excited, I just want to tell them all about it. It's really interesting. There's status is related to swords and daggers, and there's these connotations behind these words, and I'm so excited. And I don't know about you, but my students are so not excited about this stuff as I am. And I want to get up here and tell them all about it, but what's going to happen. They're just going to sit there and passively listen or not, and maybe retain 5% of what I'm saying. So the great thing about a performance task is that it's very student-centered. They're the one doing the learning. It's not just me up here talking at them. So for this particular one, these were the things that I wanted them to know. I wanted them to find the answers to these things. All right, so I created this performance task. This one's more of like a mini performance task. It's not as long or in depth, but it's the same basic format. So again, I've given them a role. This time they're a research assistant for a professor, and they are investigating those two words, sword and dagger, as it was used in Shakespeare's version of Julius Caesar. And they have to do two things in this one. So they have to write her an email in which they answer the 4 questions that are down here. So there is a writing component to this one, but then there's another component to it as well. They also have to go to some other sources other than the document library. They need to go to this website, and they have to examine how the word sword and dagger is used in the play, how many times, by whom. They have to look at this document, this primary source. This is Sir Thomas More's translation of Plutarch. That's the source that Shakespeare used when he wrote Julius Caesar. So they're going way back to look at some sources to help them. And then they're comparing it to what what Shakespeare wrote. And then their final thing that they will have to do after they answer these questions down here is create a visual. And I leave it kind of open to them. So they can do a video, infographic, whatever they want, based on the insight they've gained, what they've learned. And then I tell them to keep in mind that Dr. Crawford will use that image in class to instruct her students. So this is kind of a 2-part performance task where they are doing that written component, but now they're also creating something as well. And then I put these are the same questions that I had up there earlier. So that's what they're trying to find out. And then for the document library, I did this all in Google. I've got most of these are secondary sources. I think there's maybe 1 primary source in here that they will click on, analyze those documents, and see how they can use them to support their answers to those questions. So this one, like I said, is when I have very specific information that I want them to find, to learn, to know. Again, instead of me standing in front of the class telling them this information, they're the ones doing the work, they're the ones finding it. All right, so the next example I'm going to show you is my nonfiction example. I do an Edgar Allan Poe unit, and part of that unit is I like to go over biological information about Poe. Biographical. And again, I was that teacher who stood up in front of the class with my PowerPoint on Poe and his life, and I would, go through my slides and tell them all about Poe and his life. I might have them take some notes, maybe not, but again, they weren't retaining what I was telling them. They weren't really learning anything. So I created this performance task. So they're the ones doing the work, they're finding the information, and they're truly learning something about him. All right, so I put this one, and there's different platforms where you can, the Shakespeare one was in Google. We use Schoology in my county, so I used the Outsiders one in Schoology. This one I had put into Blend-Space, which has been recently purchased by TES Teach. So there's different platforms you can use to kind of house your scenario questions in your document libraries. So for this one, just looks like boxes. So the first box is their scenario again. All right, now this one's a little bit more involved. This one takes them longer to do. So this time, the scenario is that they are in downtown Richmond with their history class on a field trip. They've gone to St. John's Church, where Patrick Henry gave his Give Me Liberty or Give Me Death speech. And they wandered away from the group. They noticed a loose floorboard in the church. They lifted it, and they found an old wooden box with the letters E-R-S engraved on the lid. Upon opening the box, they discovered it contains a number of old photographs and letters about literary icon Edgar Allan Poe. They're so excited, they can't believe their eyes. This is just what they need to get a summer internship at the Virginia Historical Society. And then I get moans, but that's okay. All right, so Now in this one, they are using the document library that I'm giving them, but in this one I also let them go out onto the internet, and they're going to use 2 outside sources of their choice. So they can use to kind of help them kind of fill the holes with things they can't find in the document library. And of course they have to cite their sources. So they are allowed for this one to use other sources that they find. With the others, they're only allowed to use what I have given them. All right, so now after they do that, after they answer their questions, which I'll get to in a second, they also have to take the documents in the document library, all primary sources from Edgar Allan Poe in his life in that time period, and they have to arrange the documents in a timeline. And I just picked this particular one, Read, Write, Think, Interactive Timeline, but there's lots of different timeline digital tools out there. So they have to then arrange those in a timeline, and then they have to compare it to a timeline of Poe's life that I've given them here. All right, so for this one, some of the questions that they're answering. Who knew Poe with the initials ERS? So I tell them, you are like a history detective. You have to figure this out. It's a mystery. And they get very excited about that. And they also get very competitive, because when they figure out the answer and the kid next to them hasn't, they're like, what? ERS. Like, I'm not telling you. I found the answer. You go find it. So they're kind of funny about it, but they're not going to, or you could I've had them also do this where they've collaborated with a partner. So you could do it either way. Have them work on it individually, have them work with a partner so they can collaborate a little bit on this stuff. So either way works. All right, why would this box be hidden in St. John's Church? What significance does it hold specifically for Poe? And then there's, what else can you learn about the city of Richmond from the sources in the box? Who were Maria and Virginia Clem? What's Poe's relationship to these 2 women? What can you infer about Poe's relationship with his foster father? So they know nothing about Poe or his life or his relationships. They're learning it all on their own from doing this. I've talked to them about it, not at all. We've read Poe stories at this point, but they don't know anything about him as a person. 3, what do you learn about Poe's career and other writers with whom he interacted? What role did Rufus Griswold play in his life and death? And finally, what do the letters and other sources tell you about his personality? And how is his personality reflected in his work? Okay. All right, so this is what's in the box that they found. This is the document library. So there's a photograph of the Southern Literary Messenger. There are letters from his foster father to Poe, and if they click on these links, they'll see the actual letters. There is a marriage certificate. More letters from Poe to Maria Clem. This is a letter to Poe from Rufus Griswold. This is an excerpt from Poe's obituary, a photograph of a fire that occurred in Richmond in 1811, a picture of this man named Gilbert Hunt, another letter from Hawthorne to Poe, another letter from Longfellow to Poe, and then a picture of this man. All right, so these are all the documents in this document library that they use to answer the questions in that scenario. And again, this one's a little bit more in depth. There's a lot more to analyze here, a lot more to look at, to read over, and then figure out, kind of solve that little mystery. And like I said, they can go on the internet as well and find out these other sources to kind of fill in the blanks. Now, the ones I'm showing you, I use with my advanced students, but I have also used these with some of my struggling students and even in my collab classes. I just scaffold them a little bit more, maybe took out some of the documents from the document library, so there's less to kind of look at and analyze, so not to overwhelm students. But I have used this with all different levels of students in my classes. Any questions about this one? Yes?
Do you
questions. And that's basically it. I mean, like I said, it's a lot of these are based on how well they're able to use critical thinking skills and then their writing ability. Any other questions about any of these? All right, so last thing, if you'd like, take a minute to brainstorm any ideas you may have for turning a current lesson that you teach into some sort of performance task. So you can think about, like with the Outsiders one, what are some big themes, big ideas that I could have my students explore, or like for the other ones, is there very specific information you want them to know. And that's kind of like where I start when I'm creating one of these. And it's a lot of work on the front end, putting this all together, finding all the sources for the document library. But then once you put it together, it's done. You know, go back and tweak it if need be. But it's a really great sort of alternative assessment to, you know, multiple choice tests or, you know, standardized testing that they have to do. And it's kind of interesting because I see this kind of, their level of writing almost goes up a little bit because they get a lot more formal because they're playing a part, they're playing a role, and they get, even though they know I'm just the one reading it, they get more formal and more polished in their writing because they're playing a part within this little scenario.
Can you share with the judges so that they learn how to person attack person?
I haven't done that, but I mean, we certainly could. I mean, I could have them like, you know, once they're done, they could, you know, publish their pretend letters or publish their. I did have them, not with. Oh, I did have with the Shakespeare one. We did kind of publish the different visuals that they created, so they could see each other's visuals. But yeah, it's been really interesting to see the kind of things that they come up with. Does anybody have any questions or any ideas of maybe some lesson that they do that they could turn into something like this? You know, information you want them to.
To Kill a Mockingbird, I usually do a huge effort on historical context between you and them.
Right.
And the language especially. And right now it's very timely with on camera, particularly looking at that book. But I think it would be good to get them more involved. I think because I love it so much, it became my show versus theirs.
Right.
So I think this would be a good experience for them to look at some original documents, like Scottsboro Woods and things like that.
Absolutely.
Instead of being my show.
Right, exactly. Yeah, because that's what it does turn into. It was my show about Poe's life. And,
Yeah.
you know, they're like, whatever.
Yeah.
So, you know, they're the ones doing the work. They get very involved and they get very excited about it. All right, that's all I have. I'm sorry I'm ending a little early. I'm sure you don't mind. But if you have any other questions or comments, yes.
Do you have the link to your website?
I'm going to put it into the Google site for all the other presentations. Yeah, I'll throw it in there so you guys can access it if you'd like to.
Do you get overwhelmed with the amount of writing you're reading? Because I know.
Sometimes, like we all do, like all English teachers, I do spread them out over the year, so I'm not doing too many at once. But it's, it is almost, just like grading an essay, a full essay. So, but not too much.
Imagine when you sprinkle in the visual component, that could be, because they're still doing that critical thinking piece.
Right. Well, thank you all for coming.